Hi, everyone. So just as a kind of a way of a short intro, I'm George Coxon and I am COO of the Nano Foundation, and I'm here with Colin.
Hey, everyone.
Colin is the founder of Nano and CEO of the Nano Foundation. I'm afraid we don't have any slides today, but instead you get the two of us. So bonus there. So really what we're going to talk about is about blockchain and Nano in itself. So where blockchain, I think we've all heard of the buzzword, and it's the buzzword of our time, and it's been touted as a fix-all solution of many of the problems around the world. We're actually going to focus on Nano itself, which is digital money for the modern world, and it's been designed especially for social, economical, and environmental resilience. So that's really why we're here. So just a quick kind of perhaps intro into what Nano actually is. Nano is a purely kind of digital money built to address the fragility in the banking system that is around us today. Our goal is to empower individuals with the most efficient digital money possible, keeping them connected to the global economy and maintain a minimal impact on the environment. So unlike existing hybrid systems like PayPal, TransferWise, I'm sure we've all used various other companies and processes there, or electronic banking. Nano is purely digital, so it charges no fees on the network, is instantaneous. So transactions settle across the world in under half a second, operates 24/7 and gives people a right over their own money without a middleman and a bank, which we feel is incredibly important in these days. So it's worth kind of jumping into the failure points, I think, of what we feel in the current economic global crisis, I think, right now. So I'll pass over to Colin for that.
Yeah, exactly. So what are the critical points that we're trying to reinforce with Nano? You know, the one that comes out up in front is the resiliency in the banking infrastructure, resiliency to banking infrastructure collapse. What most people don't realize, how money is currently relayed or sent around the world, it requires that the banks maintain connections to each other. They have to remain open, available, connected. If there's any sort of single failure on this path, whether through circumstance or accident, it can shut off the flow of money. And this has serious downstream implications elsewhere in the economy. If you can't pay for things, or if you can't get paid because the infrastructure is not working, there's nothing else that you can do. Things really come to a standstill. So using digital money, we can eliminate this single point of failure issue.
Yeah, I think a good kind of example of what's going on today. You know, we are lucky, I think, in the UK especially, that we do still have access to the banks during this kind of global pandemic. A lot of people don't. And therefore have had their rights of their money taken away from them. On top of that, cash and card handling is has been deemed as quite a potential concern of transmitting coronavirus and furthering kind of the spread of this global pandemic. So having a form of digital money can eliminate these concerns on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. So another one of the resiliency points that we're trying to get to is simple disconnection from the banking system. It's the unbanked people or people in remote areas. There's, I think, estimates of about 1.7 billion people in the world that don't have access to a bank. They're essentially tied to cash-based trade, and getting them connected to the rest of the world, connected to the banking system, will help them out when they're encountering hardships or when the inevitable issues of the world pop up and move on.
We believe it's, and everyone should, that it's a human right to be able to control your own money and use it, spend it, send it as you wish. I think a really good example of kind of a disconnection with the banking system, and especially in the unbanked, is back in 2016, the Indian government removed 2 really large notes out of the rupee circulation overnight. That consisted of 85% of the circulating cash was removed in an effort to cut corruption. However, the people that were really affected by this were people in the lower socioeconomic kind of lines, and especially women, where women in certain countries, have very little financial empowerment themselves, and whether they were in abusive relationships or anything like that. But with this exact use case, and what happened in India, overnight, people, and especially women, had to queue publicly to exchange their life savings that they had either hoarded or hidden from partners or as an escape route out of their current situation before they became worthless, you know, overnight, which is a centralized authority deciding that and doing it in an effort to cut corruption, but yet not looking at actually the effect on the people that really matter.
Yeah, doing that in such a short time span was really, really damaging. Took a lot of people by surprise, and you know, not decisions are made, and you know, they have a lot of impact on people, and it needs to be considered. The next one that we would like to talk about is getting resiliency related to inflation around currencies, and also saving stability, the ability for you to use the savings that you've accumulated and move on. You know, economic, health, or political climate can, you know, push issuers or central banks to take measures that result in inflation, and that erodes your savings. It's a serious implication for a lot of people in the world that don't have the mostly stable monetary policy that we enjoy in the West. They don't have that. So inflation is a serious concern to them. In a crisis, it's more important than ever that people will be able to have access to their savings in this way. Otherwise, you know, they're really left with nothing. They're entirely dependent on their circumstances, their government's ability to deliver to them in this situation. And we want to make up that difference.
An example of that, I think, is what's going on in Argentina with the inflation rates of 50%. You know, whatever's in your bank account is therefore being reduced by 50% every year, out of your control. So it
is. Yeah, people don't realize the scale to which this happens in a lot of places in the world. 50% inflation is absolutely unheard of. Imagining your bank account going into half every single year if you just let it sit there. It's a big problem, and new rules are introduced all the time, leaving people struggling to figure out how to adapt to them. So the goal is to get more stability in the system so people can rely on it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think a huge point in what we are doing and what kind of separates nano and digital money from other sectors is energy consumption and sustainability, and you know, and that being a huge priority for all industries right now. Adam, I think you pointed out very well earlier that you know, new technologies, we must look at the energy footprint that they do incur. And so that's something that we have been focusing on. So I don't know whether you guys know, but every day physical money and notes are flown on transatlantic flights around the world every day for daily use, which is crazy in our minds. You know, think of their energy consumption to even do that, just for other economies to have that access to those notes. So nano is a global currency and can be used everywhere. And then on top of that, you know, if you obviously the kind of the buzzword again, Bitcoin, you know, blockchain, but with Bitcoin transactions per year use as much CO2 as 1 million transatlantic flights, which again is unacceptable for a new technology. And that's why we have been focusing on energy consumption so much. So digital money must be environmentally friendly. And that is why Nano is designed to be sustainable as possible. So our whole network theoretically can run off a windmill. And that's how money should be used.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, in addition to the social responsibility portions on this, if the technology that you're using to underlie your banking system requires massive amounts of energy to sustain itself, that in and of itself is a risk, because energy availability can go up and down, especially in a crisis, and you shouldn't be so tied to a resource that so many people are going to need in that type of situation. So, I mean, I think that covers most of what we're trying to do. You know, there's a lot of complicated blockchain solutions out there that can cure all your ailments, but Nano itself is focused on a real world situation and real world usage. We want it to be resiliency in our financial systems around the world, especially with people that don't have it currently. And it also has great additional effects of including people into the world economy that have had significant barriers up to this point.
So it's everyone should have a right to their own money. That's it. So that's a little bit about Nano. I guess we also don't want to run over, but we'll kind of open up for some questions. I've seen a few pop up, so let's, oh, hold on. Let's have a little look here.
There's a couple that's posted at 3:17 in the question box.
Okay, so is this the first? Oh, hold on.
I see one from Ben.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you see applications for blockchain beyond banking? You know, I actually diverge from a lot of people in the cryptocurrency blockchain space on this. I don't actually think that there are a lot of applications out there. Money is one of them, because it needs to be transferred to anyone in the world at any time. We need to keep it in sync. But a lot of the other problems that people are looking at trying to use blockchain, they don't actually need that type of infrastructure. They can just use existing infrastructure and it works just as well or better. You know, it's faster or cheaper. So yeah, I mean, I diverge on that a little bit. Let it be known, but I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of other industries besides actual money that can make use of blockchain cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's all about, I think, real world use, and I think there's a lot of complications around the understanding of what blockchain can do. There's a really great question here from Roz, which I'll read out. In the UK, there are nearly 12 million people who don't have a full set of basic online skills, and 6 million who have little or no access to digital. These people are more likely to be older, living with disabilities and in poverty. And how is Nano addressing digital and social exclusion? So really interesting question. I think a big part of what we're doing, and this is kind of something that we have as a little mantra inside Nano Foundation when we're creating Nano, is that it should be as simple and easy that your grandma can use it. We are working on the accessibility, but also how we portray ourselves as digital money, and kind of staying away from the cryptocurrency side of things. With the UK and with people living with disabilities or in poverty, it's somewhere that we obviously have to be wary of how, obviously we are starting off Nano and blockchain and cryptocurrencies is very early days, where with disabilities and with people in poverty, we are working towards making Nano as easy to get your hands on and easy to use to send around as possible. So we have the products that we actually have, the pipeline of being able to send Nano across the world is incredibly simple on purpose. And if we had more time, I'd love to show you me sending, you know, a couple of Nano to Colin in the Netherlands right now. But they will probably be the last people to really, I think, adapt and adopt to this kind of digital world we're moving into. When you look at other economies, such as emerging economies in Africa, you have a huge digital and mobile kind of communities out there, who more people have mobile phones and smartphones at that than kind of other forms or any other kind of access to digital. So that's really kind of where
that does tie into a question that Roz asked. It was for 4 billion people in the world don't have access to the internet. How do we reach them?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean that one is if you don't have access to the internet, I mean you can't do much of any kind of banking really, cryptocurrency or otherwise. So it is tied to the availability of being able to connect to the internet. But we were actually surprised that a lot more people than one would expect have access to the internet, primarily through mobile. They kind of skipped the desktop, home laptop phase in technology, and then went directly as a society to mobile, and that's their only internet access.
Yeah, so there's really interesting, there's lots of interesting kind of information and studies on actual mobile credit, and actually that being a currency in itself in a lot of communities, where airtime and data is shared and sold and bought as a currency in itself. So, and a currency can be anything as long as you put value in yourself on it. So that's something that we're definitely focusing on and looking into, is the access there.
There was a question from Alexis about how Bitcoin or Nano is being changed to reduce energy consumption. That one is, it was a matter of choice on the technology. Without going into details, as designed, a lot of these other systems are designed to consume energy in order to keep themselves consistent. But essentially they're designed to consume energy. And that was one of the big red flags that I saw, learning about this industry, and something I set out from the beginning to design and eliminate out of it. So it was a technological change that allowed us to reduce that energy consumption.
And that kind of came from, I think, Colin and the team watching the inefficiencies in Bitcoin that were being used, and realized that time, energy consumption, sustainability, must be looked at. And, harking back to exactly what Adam said, we must look to the future world of being sustainable and not using up energy in the ways that we are right now.
There was a question about publishing our energy usage figures. We do that on a rough scale. It is hard to directly quantify it, because what we're measuring is essentially computer server energy usage. How much network traffic does it go through? So the numbers start out very, very small, but we do estimates as about how much these servers consume, how many of them are around there, in order to get a rough cost on it. And there is a site that tracks this. I think it's called is Nano Green, or Nano is Green. But yeah, they do highlight it, because we think that that's going to be something that people are very interested in when looking at digital money.
Cool.
Okay, I think that was all the ones that are addressed to us.
Yeah, and if anyone's kind of interested in any more information, just hop onto nano.org, and we've got a huge kind of massive community that are all very passionate about sustainable digital money moving forward. So hope to see some of you there in the future.